Hunted through the metal graveyard, they prepared to die. Until a human voice said, "Follow me." The junkyard was quiet. Too quiet. Cold wind whistled between towers of scrap metal and broken machines. Old rusted parts lay scattered across the dusty ground. Long ago, humans had lived here on the planet Viren. Now all that was left was their trash, their forgotten machines, and their traps. Nira ran through the shadows, her breathing fast. She looked over her shoulder. No one. For now, her legs burned, but she couldn't stop. Not here. Not with the slavers chasing them. Just behind her, Sela stumbled. "Nira, wait," she gasped. Nira slowed down just enough to grab her friend's arm. Sela's skin shimmered faintly under the twin moons, her alien features sharp but tired. They had been running for hours. "We can't stop," Nira whispered. "They'll find us." The two alien women moved deeper into the junkyard, stepping over piles of metal and weaving through twisted beams. Every sound felt too loud. Every shadow looked like danger. Then dash snap. A scream ripped from Nira's throat. Pain exploded through her leg. She fell to the ground, metal teeth clamping around her ankle. Sela froze, eyes wide. "What is that?" "A trap," Nira groaned, trying to pull free. The more she moved, the tighter it bit. Sela rushed to help, grabbing the rusted jaws with both hands. The trap groaned but didn't open. Sharp edges cut into her palms. Nira's voice trembled. "Old human design. For hunting." Suddenly snap. A second trap shot up from the dirt, this one around Sela's waist. She gasped. The wind knocked out of her. The sharp metal squeezed, cold and unyielding. They were caught, for a moment. Both women stared at each other, panic in their eyes. This wasn't an accident. Someone had set these traps recently. And whoever it was might still be here. The wind carried a sound. Step, step. Slow, heavy, getting closer. Nira's breath shook. "They found us." Sela's voice was barely a whisper. "Slavers?" Nira nodded. Her mind filled with images, chains, cages. Being sold to the highest bidder. She would rather die here than live as property. The footsteps came again. Louder now, closer. The shadow of a figure stretched across the ground. Long and dark. Sela's hand found Nira's. They held on tightly. "If this is the end," Sela whispered, "I'm glad I'm with you." Nira's throat tightened. "Goodbye, sister." The steps stopped just a few meters away. Then, a deep voice spoke. "You're not from here." Both women froze. That voice. It wasn't the harsh, guttural tone of a slaver. It was different. The figure stepped forward. A tall shape in a torn coat, hood pulled low over his face. In the dim moonlight, his eyes caught the faintest glimmer, not like an alien's, but not fully human either. Who are you?" Nira asked, her voice weak. "Someone who doesn't like seeing people in traps," the man replied. He knelt beside them. His hands, rough and scarred, gripped the trap around Nira's leg. With a loud creak, the rusted jaws groaned and popped. "Open." Nira gasped in relief as her leg came free. Then he turned to Sela. "Hold still." With a grunt, he forced the second trap open. Metal screamed, then gave way. Sela stumbled forward, clutching her bruised waist. "Why? Why would you help us?" Sela asked, still wary. The man glanced over his shoulder. "Because they're coming. And you don't have much time." From far off, a light swept across the junkyard. "A search beam." The man's tone hardened. "Follow me if you want to live." Nira and Sela exchanged a look. They didn't trust him, not yet. But they trusted the slavers even less. They followed. He moved quickly through the maze of metal, his boots silent on the dusty ground. The two women limped after him, hearts pounding. They slipped into the shadow of an old cargo ship, its hull covered in rust and holes. Inside, it was dark, the air heavy with the smell of oil and dust. The man crouched near a small opening, watching the lights outside. Slaver voices echoed faintly low, cruel laughter. Nira swallowed hard. They won't. Stop hunting us. The man's eyes narrowed. Not if we make them stop. Before either woman could ask what he meant, a faint beep, beep, beep echoed from somewhere outside. The man's head snapped toward the sound. That's bad. What is it? Sella asked. Not a trap, he said grimly. A signal. Outside. The slaver lights moved closer, and in the darkness, the beeping grew faster. The beeping didn't stop. It was faster now, sharp, urgent, like a heartbeat made of metal. Nira felt her skin crawl. That sound, it's calling them, isn't it? The man didn't answer. He slipped out of the cargo ship and moved into the shadows. His steps were silent, his movements quick. Sella hesitated. We shouldn't follow, Nira shook her head. If that's a signal, we need to stop it. They crept after him. Outside, the cold wind carried the smell of burnt ozone. The searchlights swept across piles of scrap, making twisted shadows dance. Somewhere out there, slavers were closing in. The man stopped near a half-buried crate. He crouched low and pulled something from the dirt, a black, fist-sized device with a blinking red light. That's the tracker, he said, voice low. Sella frowned. Can't you just smash it? The man shook his head. It's not just a beacon. If I break it, it sends a distress burst instant location to their main ship. We need to move it, far away. Before they could reply, faint voices drifted. From the darkness, harsh, laughing.slevers. The man's head turned toward the sound. Change of plan, run. They didn't argue. The three of them darted deeper into the junkyard. Metal towers loomed over them, the ground littered with sharp scraps. Nira's injured leg screamed in pain, but she forced herself forward. The man led them to a narrow gap between two walls of crushed vehicles. They squeezed through, their bodies scraping against jagged edges. On the other side was a wide open space lit faintly by the moon. Sella's eyes scanned the area. We'll be seen here. Not for long, the man replied, heading toward a hulking shadow at the far end. It was an old cargo hauler half collapsed, its rear ramp hanging open. He waved them inside. The moment they stepped in, the cold hit them. The interior smelled of rust and machine oil. The man pulled a heavy tarp over the opening, cutting off the moonlight. Then, finally, he turned to face them. The hood came down. His hair was dark, streaked with silver. His face was human, but rough and scarred, with lines that spoke of years in dangerous places. His eyes, they were strange. A deep gray, almost metallic, as if they reflected the light differently. I'm Reed, he said simply. Nira's voice was wary. Why help us? He leaned against a rusted wall. Because I don't like slavers. And because I've seen too many people end up in chains. Sella folded her arms. So you're a human? I thought humans left Viren decades ago. Reed's expression didn't change. Most did. He didn't say more. A distant clang echoed outside. The slavers were searching, knocking over piles of scrap. Reed glanced toward the sound. We can't stay here. They'll sweep this area in minutes. Where do we go? Nira asked. His lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. There's a way out, but you won't like it. The beeping tracker in his hand was still blinking. Sella eyed it nervously. Where will you take that thing? Somewhere they'll chase it, Reed said. Far away from you. Nira stepped forward. You can't do that alone. Reed's eyes locked on hers. I've done worse alone. Before she could argue, the sound of boots crunched outside. Shadows moved under the tarp. Reed motioned for silence. The three of them pressed against the wall, holding their breath. A beam of light pierced the tarp. It swept across the floor, then moved away. The footsteps faded. Reed exhaled. That was too close. He tucked the tracker into his coat. "Follow me. I'm taking you to the rusted maze." Sela frowned. "What's that?" His voice was quiet, almost like a warning. "A place no sane person goes. Which is exactly why we'll survive there." Without another word, he slipped out into the night. Nira and Sela exchanged a glance. Neither liked the sound of this maze. But the slavers were hunting them, and the humans seemed to know this junkyard like the lines of his hand. They followed Dot as they disappeared into the darkness. The beeping tracker blinked in Reed's pocket, its red light like a heartbeat leading danger right to them. The rusted maze was not a real maze, Dot. It was worse, Dot, from above. It looked like a tangled nest of metal-collapsed cranes, half-buried machines, twisted beams stabbing into the sky like broken teeth. Inside, it was a labyrinth of narrow passages, dead ends, and unstable floors that could drop you into darkness. Reed moved fast, slipping through tight gaps as if he'd walked this path 100 times. Nira and Sela followed, the cold air stinging their lungs. The tracker in Reed's pocket kept up its rhythm. Beep. 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 Sela's nerves were tight. "That sound is making me crazy. Why don't we just throw it away?" Reed didn't look back, "Because if I drop it here, they'll search here. And if they search here..." He glanced upward, toward the maze walls looming like giant knives. "They'll find us before something else does," Nira frowned. "Something else?" He didn't answer. They moved deeper, the metal beneath their feet groaning. Every few steps, Nira thought she heard something like steel dragging against steel. But when she looked back, there was nothing. The beeping suddenly changed. Faster now. Reed stopped. "They're closer than I thought." "How close?" Sela asked. Reed's gray eyes darkened. "Close enough to hear us if we keep talking." They pushed on. The walls of rusted metal leaned inward, the path narrowing until they had to turn sideways to pass. That's when Nira heard it again. Not footsteps. Not slavers. A deep, grinding sound, like a giant machine waking up. She froze. "Reed!" He turned, his expression unreadable. "Keep moving." "No," she said, her voice low but sharp. "There's something here." Before he could respond, the ground under them shuddered. A thunderous clang echoed through the maze. Dust rained from above. Sela grabbed Nira's arm. What was that? Reed's hand went to the strange weapon. Slung over his back, "Guardian." The word was barely out before a shape moved in the shadows ahead. It stepped into the faint moonlight, taller than 3 men. Its body made of jagged plates of steel. Its head was a single glowing red eye. The Guardian had found them. The machine's voice boomed. Cold and mechanical. Unauthorized presence. "Eliminate." Reed fired without hesitation. The blast hit the Guardian's chest, but it barely staggered. Sparks danced across its armor. "Run!" Reed barked. They turned and sprinted. The Guardian's heavy steps shaking the ground. The maze twisted, paths splitting in 3 directions. Reed didn't hesitate, choosing the narrowest one. Behind them, the Guardian roared a grinding metal scream. Its claws ripped through walls as it forced itself forward. Nira's injured leg slowed her down. Reed dropped back, grabbed her arm, and pulled her along. They ducked into a side tunnel. It was pitch dark. The beeping tracker was still in Reed's pocket, loud now, like a warning. Sela's breath came fast. "If that thing hears this..." Reed yanked the tracker out, stared at its blinking light, then hurled it deep into another corridor. The beeping echoed away. The Guardian stopped. Its head turned toward the sound. Then with a roar, it went after the tracker. The ground trembled as its massive steps faded into the distance. For a moment, there was only silence. Reed leaned against the wall, his breathing steady despite the run. "That will only distract it for a while. We keep moving." Nira stared at him. "You've been here before." His gaze met hers. "I've been everywhere the slavers don't want to go." Sela shivered. "What is this place?" Reed's voice was low. "A graveyard. but not for people. They continued through the maze, unaware that something far worse than the Guardian was waiting for them at the other end. The maze seemed alive. Everywhere they turned, the walls of twisted metal leaned closer, casting jagged shadows in the moonlight that slipped through cracks above. Rust flakes fell with every step, floating like red snow in the cold air. Nira limped. Beside Sella, each movement sending a sharp ache up her leg. Reed stayed ahead, moving with the speed of someone who knew exactly where to step and where not to. They passed under a collapsed crane. Its chains swayed slowly, though there was no wind. Sella's voice was a whisper. "I hate this place." "You should," Reed said without looking back. "Most who come in here don't come out." A sharp ping rang out. Nira flinched. "What was that?" Reed stopped. "Falling metal." But his voice was tense, and his eyes searched the shadows. They moved on, the path growing narrower until only one person could pass at a time. In the distance, a soft grinding sound echoed like the Guardian's voice, but slower, heavier. Sella frowned. "Is it coming back?" Reed didn't answer. They reached a crossroads, 3 tunnels, each leading into deeper darkness. Reed hesitated, scanning the ground. He knelt, brushing away dust to reveal faint white markings on the metal floor, human symbols, half faded with time. Nira crouched beside him. "You know what those mean?" "They're warnings," Reed said quietly. "From before the humans left." Sella tilted her head. "Warnings for what?" Before Reed could reply, a loud clang shattered the air. Something moved in the tunnel to their left. At first, it looked like another Guardian. But as it stepped into the dim light, they saw it was different, smaller, faster, its body sleek and covered in strange markings. Its limbs were sharp, blade-like, and its face was nothing but a jagged hole that hissed with steam. Reed's jaw tightened. "Hunter class." The machine let out a shrill metallic scream and leapt forward. Reed shoved Nira and Sella toward the middle tunnel. "Go!" They ran, the metal beneath their boots groaning. The hunter's steps were quick, scraping sparks with every movement. Reed turned suddenly, fired a shot that lit the tunnel with a flash of white light. The blast hit the hunter's leg, making it stumble, but it recovered instantly. Nira's heart pounded. "You can't kill it?" Reed's voice was grim. "Not with what I've got." They burst into a wide chamber, an open space at the maze's center. Huge piles of rusted machine parts rose like hills, and in the middle, a broken human vehicle, half buried in dust. The hunters skidded into the chamber behind them. Reed looked around quickly, eyes scanning the walls. Then he ran toward the buried vehicle. Inside now. Sella helped Nira limp across the uneven ground. Reed yanked open the rusted hatch and pushed them inside. The air inside was stale, the walls cold. Nira's eyes adjusted to the dark end. She froze. The walls weren't just metal. They were lined with glowing panels, faintly humming. Strange human writing ran across them. "This isn't a vehicle," Sella whispered. "It's a control station." Reed slammed the hatch shut and dropped into a seat near the panels. His fingers moved quickly, pressing buttons, flipping old switches. The ground outside shook. The hunter slammed against the hatch, its blade scraping metal. "Come on," Reed muttered, his hands flying over the controls. With a sudden deep thrum, the panels lit brighter. Somewhere in the maze, heavy machinery woke with a roar. Nira's eyes widened. "What did you do?" Reed's gray gaze flicked to her. "Turned on the maze." From outside came the sound of grinding gears and snapping metal. The hunter screamed, then something massive crashed into it. Silence. Reed stood, opening the hatch. "A crack, it's gone, for now." Sella stepped forward, her eyes sharp. "You know too much about this place." "Why?" For a moment, Reed didn't answer. The glow from the panels made his metallic eyes shine even more. Finally he said, "Because I helped build it." The silence inside the control station was heavy. Nira, and Sella stared at Reed, the faint blue glow from the panels reflecting off his face. His eyes looked sharper in this light, almost metallic. "You built this?" Nira asked, her voice low. Reed's gaze didn't leave the controls. "Not all of it. I was part of a crew. Human engineers, soldiers. We came here to make something the slavers couldn't pass." Sella's brow furrowed. "A prison?" Reed gave a faint, humorless smile. "A wall, a fortress. A trap. The rusted maze was designed to keep invaders out. But after the war, there was no one left to protect." The words hung in the stale air. Nira's voice softened. "What happened to them? The other humans?" Reed finally turned. "Dead, all of them. Slavers came with numbers we couldn't fight. They burned the cities, took the survivors." Sella hesitated. "And you?" His jaw tightened. "I wasn't human enough for them to sell. Wasn't machine enough for them to dismantle. So they left me here." Nira frowned. "Not human enough?" Without a word, Reed pulled off his left glove. Metal fingers glinted in the blue light. But it wasn't just his hand. Faint seams ran up his wrist, disappearing under his coat. "I was injured. In the war," Reed said. "Half my body gone. My own crew rebuilt me with what we had left." Sella stepped closer, her voice quiet. "You're a cyborg." Reed nodded once. "I'm Rustberg. Part human, part machine. No place in either world." The floor shook, a deep fume vibrating through the metal walls. Reed's head snapped toward the sound. "They're still here." Nira's stomach twisted. "Slavers?" "Yes," Reed said, standing. "The tracker I threw bought us time, but it won't last. They'll find the maze entrance, and when they do, they'll send more than hunters." Sella glanced at the glowing panels. "Can't you use this control station to stop them?" Reed's eyes darkened. "I can do more than stop them. I can make sure no one leaves this maze alive." Nira froze. "You mean, kill them all?" Reed didn't flinch. "If I let them live, they'll follow you for the rest of your lives. They'll take others. They won't stop until they own everything. They see." The rumble outside grew louder, boots clanging on metal, voices shouting orders. Sella's breathing quickened. "How many?" Reed closed his eyes for a moment, as if listening. "Enough to end this one way or another." He turned back to the controls, pressing a sequence of buttons. Somewhere in the maze, massive doors slammed shut. Nira stepped forward. "If you fight them, you'll die." Reed's lips twitched into the faintest smirk. "I've already died once. This time, I'll make it count." Before they could answer, the sound of cutting torches hissed outside. The slavers were slicing their way into the station. Reed grabbed his rifle and a belt of strange, heavy rounds. He handed Nira a small boxy device. "If I fall," he said, "press this button. It will open a path out." Nira stared at the device. "And you?" Reed's gaze was steady. "I'm the reason they're here. I'll be the reason they stay." The cutting torches sparked bright against the hatch. Metal screamed as it began to give way. Reed stood tall, rifle ready, eyes fixed on the door. Nira's throat tightened. "You're not just a soldier, are you?" Reed's voice was calm, almost soft. "No, I'm the last human on Viren, and I'm done running." The hatch blew inward with a deafening crash. Smoke filled the room, and Reed charged forward into the dark. The hatch lay twisted on the floor, smoke curling through the doorway. Reed stepped into it without hesitation. Blaster fire lit the narrow hallway beyond, white and red bolts flashing against the steel. Reed moved like a shadow, his mechanical arm absorbing one hit, his rifle spitting back deadly fire. Two slavers fell instantly. Inside the control station, Nira and Sella crouched behind a console. The air smelled of ozone and burning metal. Sella's voice shook. "We can't just sit here, he'll be killed." Nira's eyes locked on the small device Reed had given her. He told us to run. Another explosion rocked the station, dust raining from the ceiling. In the hallway, Reed fought like a man who had nothing left to lose. His movements were precise, every step a counter, every shot a kill. But there were too many. For every slaver he dropped, two more pushed forward. A heavy thud echoed. From the smoke emerged something massive: slaver shock trooper armor, a walking tank bristling with weapons. Reed's jaw tightened. All right then. He reached to his belt, pulled a cylindrical charge, and hurled it. The blast lit the hallway in blinding white, sending the trooper sprawling. Reed was already moving, leaping over the wreckage. In the control room, Nira peeked over the console and froze. A second group of slavers was climbing through a side breach in the wall. Sella's eyes widened. They're inside. Nira grabbed a rusted pipe from the floor. She wasn't strong, but she wasn't going to die cowering. The first slaver threw swung his weapon at her. She ducked, swung the pipe with both hands, and felt the sickening crack as it connected. Sella snatched the fallen weapon and fired wildly, forcing the rest back. The two women stood side by side, hearts hammering, every muscle burning. From the hallway, Reed shouted, "Get to the tunnel! Now!" They turned. He was covered in grime and blood, his coat shredded, his mechanical arms sparking, but his eyes still burned with that unyielding steel. The slavers regrouped for one last push. Their leader stepped forward, tall and reptilian, his voice a hiss. "You're the last human, Reed. You die here." Reed's smirk was cold. That's what they all said. He slammed his palm onto a wall panel. All around them, the maze came alive, walls shifting, floors collapsing, massive steel plates sliding into place. Somewhere deep inside, the Guardian roared to life. Metal screamed as the maze closed like the jaws of a predator. The slavers fired in panic, but the moving walls tore through them. The Guardian's massive frame appeared from the smoke, red eye blazing, cutting down anything in its path. Reed backed toward Nira and Sella, reloading his rifle with his one good hand. "Move!" They ran, the sound of the dying maze echoing behind them, screams, gunfire, and the grinding of steel on steel. At the tunnel entrance, Nira turned to see Reed stagger. His leg gave out, sparks shooting from a joint. She ran back, grabbed his arm. "You're not staying behind." Reed's voice was hoarse. "If I go, the maze stops. They'll get out." Sella shouted from the tunnel, "We can finish it together." For a heartbeat, Reed hesitated, caught between his mission and the two alien women who refused to abandon him. Finally, he shoved a lever on the wall. "Then run faster than you ever have." The tunnel shook as they disappeared into it, the sound of collapsing metal chasing them like a living storm. Behind them, the maze roared one last time. The tunnel spat them out into the open. Cold air rushed over Nira's face, carrying the sharp scent of rust and smoke. Above them, the sky was shifting from black to the soft blue of early dawn. The twin moons were fading, replaced by the first pale light of the sun. They had made it out of the rusted maze. Nira collapsed to her knees, chest heaving. Sella leaned against the rocky wall, her arms trembling from exhaustion. For a moment, they just listened to the wind, to their own breathing, and to the absence of the slaver's boots. Then Nira's eyes widened. "Where's Reed?" Sella's head snapped around. The tunnel mouth behind them was still dark. The deep rumble of the maze had faded, leaving only silence, and then a single, slow clank. Out of the shadows Reed emerged. His coat was in tatters, his mechanical arm missing from the elbow down. Sparks flickered from his shoulder, and a long gash bled across his temple. But he was walking. Alive. Nira and Sella rushed to him, each taking an arm. He was heavier than he looked, and each step he took left a faint trail of oil and blood in the dust. "What happened?" Nira asked. Reed's voice was rough, almost gone. "Maze, closed behind me. Nothing's getting out now." Sella looked back at the tunnel. A faint plume of black smoke drifted upward from deep inside. She shivered. You destroyed it. Reed's eyes, even clouded with exhaustion, still held that unbreakable steel. I didn't build it to keep out invaders. I built it for today. They walked together toward the rising sun. Behind them, the maze was silent, a grave for machines and slavers alike. As they reached the top of a ridge, Nira looked out across the horizon. In the distance, the broken skeletons of human cities glimmered in the light. What will you do now? Sela asked. Reed didn't answer right away. He looked at the two women beside him, alien fugitives who had trusted him against all reason. Finally he said, Slavers think this world is theirs. We'll make them think again. Nira smiled faintly. We? Reed's smirk returned, small but certain. If you'll have me. They continued down the ridge, their footsteps soft in the dust. 3 sets of tracks, side by side. 1 human, 2 alien. The sun climbed higher, turning the sky gold. Somewhere far away, new dangers waited. But for now, in this moment, they were alive, and that was enough.